Hi guys and welcome to Crazy Pepper Revenge. This channel is all about crazy true stories, stuff that happens in real life when things get a little bit messy, people dealing with drama, cheating, lies, breakups, and even revenge. Some stories are wild, some are emotional, but all of them will keep you watching. If you like real talk and real situations, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stick around. This is Crazy Pepper Revenge, where the stories get spicy.
I gave you this dream, and you gave me lies. Now watch it fall.
My wife Clarice, 27F, and I, 30M, were married 4 years when everything fell apart. I run a successful jewelry business with my brothers. She owns a small cafe downtown. I thought we had a solid foundation. Me with my growing business, her with her cherished cafe that I helped fund. I was completely wrong. It started with what seemed like an innocent comment she made in our apartment's living room. "There's a new guy who comes to the cafe, and he's super interesting." I heard something different in her tone, a thrill of excitement she rarely used except when discussing her favorite romance novels. His name was Ivan, from Serbia, tall, blonde, and apparently unbelievably charming. She described him like a character straight from her books, brooding, mysterious, surprisingly sweet, well-read in Western novels, searching for a better life in America. "He has this accent. I don't know. It's just so unique," she said, her cheeks coloring slightly. I tried keeping my face neutral despite the uncomfortable knot forming in my stomach. That's nice. Always good to have a well-read customer, I guess. But unease settled over me like a heavy blanket. Over the next few days, Clarice's musings about Ivan became absolutely constant. She'd come home with shining eyes, rattling off tidbits about his day, his thoughts on the American workforce, his deep love of Tolstoy and Tolkien. Part of me felt silly for being jealous. Clarice was allowed to have friendships, and I wasn't exactly the world's most sentimental husband. I'd always been pragmatic and, if I'm being honest, somewhat controlling. She usually complained that I didn't give enough compliments, that I was too wrapped up in the jewelry business to praise her new hairstyle or the experimental pastries she tested for her shop. So I wasn't the best spouse, but I wasn't ready for what came next. 3 weeks after she first mentioned Ivan, I visited her cafe unannounced with tulips from a nearby flower stall, my genuine attempt at being more thoughtful. The place had its usual crowd of college students reading novels and folks on laptops hunting for free Wi-Fi. I spotted Clarice behind the counter in her signature flower-dusted apron, all smiles and energy. As I approached to surprise her, the door swung open behind me. A man with broad shoulders and neatly styled blonde hair passed by, and my skin tingled with that inexplicable sense of rivalry that sometimes hits when another male enters your space. He shot me a cursory glance before focusing entirely on Clarice, his eyes lighting up noticeably. "Clarice, you forgot your phone in the back room, I think," he said in an unmistakably Eastern European accent, holding up her cell phone like some kind of hero. She smiled widely, more warmly than I'd seen in months. "Oh my God, thank you, Ivan. I was looking everywhere for that. I owe you, you're a lifesaver." The genuine warmth and gratitude in her voice was obvious and painful, making my gut clench with jealousy. I cleared my throat deliberately. "Hey, honey." She spun around, appearing genuinely startled to see me there. "Oh, hey, you didn't mention you were dropping by today." Ivan hovered nearby with an amused half-smile, and something about his nonchalant expression felt off to me, like he was quietly studying me and deciding whether I was real competition or just an obstacle. That evening, while we cooked dinner together, I questioned her more directly about Ivan. She shrugged casually, telling me he was just a friendly customer, that I had absolutely no reason to be suspicious about anything. When I admitted I felt genuinely uneasy about their interactions, her reaction was swift and defensive. "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "I get to have friends, especially ones who actually like reading as much as I do. Just because we share intellectual interests doesn't mean there's anything romantic going on." Less than a week later, I found myself sitting home alone at 9:15 p.m., waiting for Clarice to return from the cafe. She normally closed up shop by 7 p.m. sharp, and it was already well past that. My phone showed no missed calls, no explanatory texts, nothing. When she finally bounded through our front door, her face was flushed from the cool night air and her hair looked slightly mussed. "You're late," I said flatly, standing up from the couch. She rolled her eyes dramatically, tossing her purse onto the kitchen table. I know. I'm sorry. The cafe had an unexpectedly busy day. Plus, I was showing Ivan around town. He's still pretty new here, so we decided to grab a slice of pizza. You wouldn't believe it, he's never had proper New York-style pizza before. So we walked around a bit, chatted about our favorite books and authors. You went out with him alone? I let the statement hang heavy in the air between us. She lifted one eyebrow challengingly. Don't start with that suspicious tone. I already know exactly where your mind is going, and you're completely wrong. He's just a friend, and from what he's told me during our conversations, he might actually be gay for all we know. He never explicitly said it directly, but he's dropped enough hints about not being particularly interested in women romantically. I exhaled harshly, feeling frustration building. The convenient gay claim seemed far too convenient for my liking. It's after 9 o'clock, Clarice. You could have at least sent me a message, told me you'd be running late. She shot back immediately. Seriously? You never check in with me when you get stuck late at the jewelry store, sometimes until past midnight. But I do one spontaneous thing with a friend and you act like I'm cheating on you. Get over yourself. I'm not your property. This pattern continued and escalated over the following weeks. After several increasingly heated arguments where I demanded she stop seeing Ivan outside the professional confines of the cafe, she finally promised to set clear boundaries. Fine, you win. I won't see him again outside the cafe. Happy, she said with resignation. But just days later, I caught them red-handed, walking arm in arm down the main street, laughing together intimately like actual lovers. When I confronted her about this blatant violation of her promise, she made weak excuses about him just being naturally touchy, and that gay men frequently do that kind of thing with their female friends, so it didn't mean anything romantic. That night, overwhelming curiosity finally got the better of me. As Clarice slept peacefully beside me, I carefully slipped her phone from under her pillow, my heart thumping loudly in my throat. Her WhatsApp had a pinned conversation with someone listed simply as I. With my worst suspicions about to be confirmed, I opened it with trembling fingers. The messages that appeared on screen were like digital daggers through my heart. Ivan, 2:12 p.m. I miss you so much, baby. Today was incredibly fun. Does your husband suspect anything yet? Clarice, 2:15 p.m. He's completely losing his mind with paranoia. I had to promise I'd avoid you entirely. God, I hate lying to him, but I also hate how controlling and suspicious he's become lately. Ivan, 2:20 p.m. He is such a fool. Yes, we keep going with this. Let him stay in the dark where he belongs. As I scrolled further through their conversation history, my pulse hammered against my temples. Their messages weren't remotely friendly or platonic. They talked explicitly about stolen kisses, secret romantic trysts after closing time at the cafe, and how absolutely thrilling it felt to keep me, the jealous bully husband, completely clueless about their affair. She'd told him I was turning into a total villain in her mind, so she didn't even feel guilty anymore about betraying me. The maybe he's gay story was a complete fabrication that they both found absolutely hilarious. I also found numerous photos of them together at various city landmarks and romantic spots she'd never once mentioned visiting. Arms wrapped around each other, looking like the perfect happy couple. She'd obviously blocked me from seeing any of these photos on her social media accounts. I took screenshots of everything and quietly emailed all the evidence to myself. The next morning, I confronted Clarice directly with the damning proof. Instead of showing any remorse or offering apologies, she immediately blamed me for pushing her away by being emotionally unsupportive of her love of literature and never giving her the compliments she craved. She insisted that maybe if I'd been a better, more attentive husband who actually appreciated her intellectual interests, none of this would have happened. She accused me of burying myself in the family jewelry business while neglecting her emotional needs. I told her to pack her belongings immediately. We were finished. During the subsequent divorce proceedings, I discovered something that made my blood absolutely boil with rage. Ivan operated a YouTube channel with thousands of subscribers, where he systematically taught other men his techniques for seducing married women who felt neglected by their husbands. His videos had titles like How to Capture a Married Woman, Seducing an Unhappy Wife, and Tips for Conducting Secret Affairs. He would brag about his romantic conquests in heavily accented English, sometimes switching to Serbian, occasionally referencing a cafe owner who is bored and frustrated with her controlling husband. Even worse, he maintained an OnlyFans account that featured actual videos with the cheating wives he'd seduced. The preview clips showed strategically blurred faces, but I immediately recognized Clarice's distinctive silhouette in one of them. He was literally profiting financially from destroying my marriage and possibly filming my wife without her complete understanding of how the content would be used and distributed. The divorce proceedings went smoothly in my favor since I possessed absolutely bulletproof evidence of her infidelity. My lawyer was genuinely stunned by how blatant and incriminating their text message conversations were. I successfully kept our house, avoided paying any alimony, and retained my full shares in the family jewelry business. Clarice only received the cafe and the old sedan I'd previously purchased for her. Midway through the legal proceedings, Clarice announced she was pregnant and swore the baby was definitely mine, despite the obviously murky timeline given her ongoing affair with Ivan. After the divorce was completely finalized, I realized I couldn't simply let Ivan's carnivory behavior go unpunished. This wasn't just about my personal marriage anymore. He was systematically targeting emotionally vulnerable married women for both sexual conquest and profitable online content. I waited outside Clarice's cafe one afternoon, hidden inside a borrowed SUV with heavily tinted windows. I'd recruited 2 men I knew from my rougher teenage years who each owed me significant favors. When Ivan emerged from the cafe around closing time, walking confidently down the street while filming himself on his phone, probably updating his followers about another successful conquest, we stepped out to confront him. "Hey, Ivan, remember me?" "I'm the controlling husband," I called out as my masked friends immediately grabbed his arms. He initially tried acting tough and threatening, but genuine fear flashed in his eyes when I specifically mentioned his YouTube channel and OnlyFans page. "You systematically messed with my life, filmed my wife without full consent, posted her online for profit, and bragged about seducing her," I said before punching him hard in the jaw. My friends pinned him firmly against the brick wall as I delivered another solid blow to his ribs. I grabbed his phone from his trembling hands and hurled it against the pavement, completely shattering it. When he threatened to call lawyers, I told him I had significantly more money and legal resources, plus concrete evidence of his text messages mocking me. I threatened to sue him for alienation of affection and report him to immigration authorities. "If I ever see a single video of Clarice or any reference to me on your disgusting channels, I will personally drag you through every court in this city," I warned him menacingly. "Pack up all your carnivory conquests and go back to whatever hole you originally crawled out of." He was visibly bloodied and genuinely terrified, finally agreeing to leave town permanently. We left him there on the ground with his destroyed phone and thoroughly bruised ego. Several months passed with Clarice calling me repeatedly, sometimes sounding desperately apologetic, other times furiously angry and accusatory. When she eventually gave birth to a baby boy, her father made multiple attempts to pressure me into signing the birth certificate and accepting parental responsibility. I firmly refused until official DNA test results were available. When the paternity test was finally completed, the results were absolutely unequivocal. 0% chance I was the biological father. All her months of swearing it was obviously mine turned out to be complete BS. I immediately texted Clarice a screenshot of the official results along with the message, "We're completely finished. Don't ever contact me again." She's been completely radio silent since receiving those results. I've heard through mutual friends that she's struggling significantly as a single mother, had to sell her car just to keep the cafe running and pay basic expenses. My friends are split. Some think the physical confrontation with Ivan went too far, while others believe this predator got exactly what he deserved for being a manipulative parasite who systematically destroys marriages for personal profit. Aita, for taking justice into my own hands instead of letting the courts handle everything. Should I have just ignored his continued carnivory behavior while he kept targeting other vulnerable marriages? Part of me occasionally feels bad about Clarice's current difficult situation, but she made her choices and has to live with the natural consequences of her betrayal and lies.
Hi guys and welcome to Crazy Pepper Revenge. This channel is all about crazy true stories, stuff that happens in real life when things get a little bit messy, people dealing with drama, cheating, lies, breakups, and even revenge. Some stories are wild, Some are emotional, but all of them will keep you watching. If you like real talk and real situations, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stick around. This is Crazy Pepper Revenge, where the stories get spicy.
I never fit in with my wife Tracy's family. Standing on Marissa's pool deck in my wrinkled work clothes and steel-toed boots, I felt completely out of place among their designer sandals and country club catalog looks. The concrete was slick from earlier rain, and I kept shuffling toward the background like I always did at these family gatherings. Everyone else looked like they'd stepped out of some wealthy lifestyle magazine, while I still smelled like the warehouse from my double shift. Tracy was across the yard, laughing with her perfect white teeth, clutching some fancy cocktail that probably cost more than I made in a day. She looked right at home with her people, the Golden Children, all three of them with their perfect lives and perfect problems. I should have stayed home, but you don't say no to the Hendersons when they're throwing a party, not if you want to keep the peace. The party was in full swing around me. Kids splashing in the pool, adults networking over wine and cheese with names I couldn't pronounce. I recognized most faces from previous gatherings, but recognition doesn't equal belonging. These people knew exactly what I was. Tracy's blue-collar husband who didn't quite fit their mold. I was minding my own business, watching the water ripple in the pool and thinking about overtime to pay the electric bill when I saw him coming. Brent, with that swagger that screamed privilege from 50 yards away. He had that look in his eyes, the same one he'd had since the day I married his sister. That look that said he was about to have some fun, and I was going to be the entertainment. Everett. His voice cut through the party chatter like a knife. There's my favorite brother-in-law. You know what this party needs? Some excitement. Some real fun. I could feel eyes on us already, other guests sensing something was about to happen, turning to watch like we were the main event. This was how it always went with Brent. He needed an audience for his games, and I was always his favorite target. "Come on, Everett," he called loud enough for everyone to hear. "Let's show these people some real fun." I took a step back, my boots scraping against the wet concrete. "I'm good, man, really. Just enjoying the party." But Brent wasn't taking no for an answer. He never did. That's when I felt his hand clamp down on my arm. Not friendly, not playful, but possessive, like I was his property to do with as he pleased. "No, no, no," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, trying not to make a scene. "Brent, I'm in my work clothes, man. I don't want to—" "Don't be such a buzzkill," Tracy's voice cut through my protests like she was scolding a child. She didn't even look up from her conversation, just waved her hand dismissively. "It's Marissa's day, Everett. Stop being so damn dramatic." Dramatic. That was always her word for me when I tried to set boundaries, when I didn't want to be the butt of their jokes or the target of their games. "Seriously, Everett," Marissa chimed in from across the deck, her voice sharp with irritation. "Can you just go along with something for once? This is supposed to be my special day." The crowd was watching now, all of them waiting to see what would happen next, waiting to see if I'd be a good sport or if I'd ruin the party with my drama. The pressure was suffocating, but it was familiar too. This was how it always went in Tracy's family. You played along with their games or you were the problem. Brent's grip tightened on my arm. "See? Even the birthday girl wants you to have some fun. Come on, little brother." Little brother. I was 34 years old, but to Brent, I'd always be the little brother who needed to be put in his place, the outsider who needed reminding of where he stood in the family hierarchy. "Brent, please!" I tried one more time, but my voice was drowned out by his laughter and encouraging calls from the crowd. Someone shouted, "Do it!" Someone else was already pulling out their phone to record whatever was about to happen. That's when Brent spun me hard, like I was a toy. The world tilted sideways and I felt my feet leave the ground. For a split second, I was airborne, completely at the mercy of momentum and gravity and Brent's idea of entertainment. I wasn't a child. I was a grown man with responsibilities and bills and a bad back from years of warehouse work. But in that moment, spinning through the air with laughter filling my ears, I felt as helpless as a kid being bullied. The edge of the pool was right behind me. I could see the concrete steps rushing toward me as I spun. Hard, unforgiving concrete that didn't care about birthday parties or family dynamics. This was supposed to be just a joke, right? Just Brent being Brent. Just family fun that I'd laugh about later. But as I felt myself falling backward toward those steps, I knew this wasn't going to be funny at all. The sound when I hit those steps wasn't a thud or splash, it was a crack. A sharp, definitive crack that echoed across the entire yard like a gunshot. The pain was immediate and absolute, radiating from my lower back like lightning. I tried to suck in air, but my lungs had forgotten how to work. I was lying there, half in the pool, half out, my work shirt soaked through, but I couldn't feel anything below my waist. Nothing, like someone had erased the bottom half of my body. "Walk it off, Everett." Tracy's voice cut through the haze of pain and shock. "You're embarrassing us. Don't be such a baby." A baby? I couldn't feel my legs, couldn't breathe properly. And she was calling me a baby in front of all her friends and family. "Of course," Marissa's voice joined in, dripping with frustration. "Of course he pulls this drama on my birthday. My one special day, and he has to make it all about him." I tried to speak, tried to tell them something was really wrong, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. "I can't move my legs." The words hung in the air, but nobody seemed to hear them over their complaints about their ruined party. But then, everything changed when Samantha, one of Marissa's friends, suddenly appeared beside me. While everyone else was bitching and moaning, she was actually looking at me, really looking, with focused attention. "Hey," she said, her voice calm but urgent as she knelt next to me. "Can you hear me? I need you to try something for me, okay?" Her hands moved over my legs, checking for something. "Can you feel this?" She pressed down on my shin, then my thigh, then my ankle. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. "Can you wiggle your toes for me?" I tried. God, I tried so hard. I stared down at my feet, willing them to move, concentrating every ounce of energy I had left, but it was like sending signals to a phone that had been disconnected. Samantha's face went white. Not pale. White. The color drained from her cheeks so fast it was like watching someone pull the plug on a bathtub. "Nobody touch him," she said, her voice suddenly carrying authority that made everyone stop. "Nobody move him at all. This could be spinal. This could be really, really bad." The laughter died. Finally, blessedly, the laughter died. "What's wrong with him?" Tracy's voice had changed now, less irritated and more worried. "I'm a paramedic," Samantha said, already pulling out her phone. "You just threw a grown man backward into concrete steps. He can't feel his legs. This is not horseplay. This is a medical emergency." The ambulance arrived with sirens and flashing lights, turning our suburban pool party into a crime scene. Officer Riley appeared first, scanning the scene with sharp cop eyes that missed nothing. Paramedic Cassidy knelt beside me with practiced efficiency. "What happened here?" she asked. This was the moment of truth. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Tracy, Brent, Marissa, all the party guests who'd been laughing minutes ago. They were waiting to see what story I'd tell, probably hoping I'd downplay it, make it sound like an accident, keep the peace like I always did. But lying there on those concrete steps, unable to feel half my body, something had shifted inside me. Maybe it was finally having someone who was actually listening instead of telling me to walk it off. "Brent picked me up and threw me," I said, the words coming out clearer than I'd expected. "I told him no. I told him I didn't want to do it. He grabbed me anyway, spun me around and threw me backward into these steps. I can't move my legs." The silence that followed was deafening. This wasn't the story they wanted me to tell. This wasn't me being a good sport about their family fun. At the hospital, Dr. Warren delivered news that changed everything. The MRI revealed not just a fresh fracture at L2, but 3 older fractures throughout my spine. "These are old injuries, Everett," she explained gently. "All show signs of repeated blunt force trauma over several years." Suddenly, memories flooded back. The trampoline incident where Brent had wrestled me off the edge and I'd hit the metal frame. The stairs at Thanksgiving where he'd accidentally bumped me from behind, sending me tumbling down concrete steps. The pool party where he'd held me underwater as a joke until I nearly passed out. Every time there was an excuse. Every time it was just Brent being Brent. Every time I was the one being too sensitive, too dramatic. All of these fractures show signs of repeated blunt force trauma, Dr. Patterson added. They're in different stages of healing, suggesting they occurred at different times over an extended period. My spine had been keeping score this whole time. Every shove, every throw, every accident that wasn't really an accident. It was all documented in bone and tissue like a medical rap sheet. Detective Ford showed me the party video that night. Watching myself being spun and thrown like a rag doll while everyone laughed was devastating. You could see how helpless I looked, how completely at Brent's mercy. The way he threw me wasn't playful. It was violent, deliberate. "What do you see when you watch this, Everett?" she asked. "I see attack," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I see my brother-in-law attacking me while my wife stood by and let it happen. That's exactly what I see too." Based on the evidence, we're filing charges against Brent for attack with bodily harm. Given the pattern of old injuries, we're also looking at aggravated attack. When Tracy found out about Brent's arrest, she stormed into my hospital room furious. Not about my injuries, but about the family embarrassment. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she hissed. "They arrested my brother. They put him in handcuffs in front of the neighbors." "The doctors found 3 other fractures in my spine," I said, trying to stay calm. "Old ones, Tracy. From all those other times your brother played with me. This isn't about one incident. This is about years of misuse that you helped cover up." "Misuse? You're calling normal family roughhousing misuse now? No wonder you can't handle a real job or make real friends. You're too busy playing the sufferer." The trial was brutal but vindicating. My spine told its story in black and white medical images. The prosecutor methodically laid out years of accidents for what they really were. Systematic misuse enabled by family denial. The video footage was devastating. You could see the deliberate force Brent used, hear his laughter, watch my terror. When I testified, something clicked. These people deserve to hear the truth. "Brent didn't just hurt me that day at the pool," I said, my voice steady and clear. "He'd been hurting me for years, and my wife's family had been teaching me that it was my fault for not being tough enough to take it." The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Judge Monroe's words echoed through the courtroom. "Mr. Henderson, you have shown a pattern of violence spanning several years. Your actions were deliberate, calculated, and resulted in serious bodily harm. This court sentences you to 5 years in state prison. 18 months later, I'm standing in my own kitchen, making coffee in my own apartment. The place isn't much, a 1-bedroom with hardwood floors that creak when I walk, but it's mine. Nobody here tells me I'm being dramatic when I need to rest my back. The limp is permanent. Some days it's barely noticeable, other days I need the cane. But I'm walking. Against all odds, against the initial prognosis that had me preparing for life in a wheelchair, I'm walking on my own 2 feet. I work at the Metro Men's Outreach Center now, helping other misuse survivors recognize that their pain matters. There are a lot of guys out there who've been told their suffering doesn't count, who've been convinced that speaking up makes them weak. I keep those MRI scans framed on my wall. I know it sounds weird, but those black and white images aren't just medical records. They're proof. Proof that I wasn't making it up, wasn't being dramatic, wasn't weak for not fighting back. Every crack in those vertebrae is documentation of survival. Sometimes people ask if I'm angry about the years I lost, the pain I endured, the family that threw me away rather than acknowledge what they'd done. The honest answer is that some days I am angry, but mostly I'm just grateful. Grateful that Samantha knew what she was looking at when I couldn't move my legs. Grateful that Dr. Warren could read the story my spine was telling. Grateful that Detective Ford believed me when I finally found courage to speak up. I was told to walk it off, to stop being a baby, to quit making everything about me. Now I walk on my own terms, at my own pace, toward a future I'm building for myself. Every step I take is proof that they were wrong about me. My spine may have been broken, but my voice is whole now, and that makes all the difference.
Hi guys, and welcome to Crazy Pepper Revenge. This channel is all about crazy true stories, stuff that happens in real life when things get a little bit messy, people dealing with drama, cheating, lies, breakups, and even revenge. Some stories are wild, some are emotional, but all of them will keep you watching. If you like real talk and real situations, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stick around. This is Crazy Pepper Revenge, where the stories get spicy.
You like stealing fiancés, homewrecker? Here's your prize.
2 weeks before my wedding, my fiancée Tasha sat me down in our small living room with the most ridiculous request I've ever heard. She paced nervously behind our coffee table, arms crossed tight over her chest. "I just need something more," she said, her voice quivering with unfamiliar urgency. "I've been thinking about it for months. I don't want to pretend anymore." I looked up from the worn-out couch, drumming nervous fingers against my knee. "You're saying you want to bring other people into our relationship? You think that's going to strengthen what we have?" She pressed a hand to her temple like warding off a headache. "Yes, I know it sounds strange, but we're so close to our wedding. We've only ever slept with each other, and I'm terrified of feeling trapped or that I missed out. I feel like I need to expand." I stared at her long enough that the dust motes in the afternoon light seemed to slow. "And you want me to be on board? Do you realize how that sounds? 2 weeks before we get married, you start talking about sleeping with other men." "I'm not talking about flings and dirty motel rooms," she said, frustration edging her tone. "People do this. Open relationships. Polyamory, it's a real thing. It saves couples from jealousy or resentment. Or it introduces it," I said quietly, with a grim half-smile. Her eyes narrowed. She'd always been strong-willed, even arrogant. "So you won't even consider it? Don't I get a say in how I envision our marriage?" I swallowed back anger. "When you say open, you mean you want the freedom, but you don't want me to do the same, right? That's what you implied last night." She lifted her chin, letting her thick black hair tumble behind her shoulders. "Because it's different for women. If you start sleeping around, you might see it as a new beginning and ditch me for some new fling. But if I do it, it's just a little exploration. I'm in this for us. I love you, Vance. I just need more." "Do you hear yourself?" I said, rubbing my temples. "You're basically telling me you get to wander outside the lines without consequence, and you expect me to just stand there nodding with some goofy grin on my face." "It's not like that," Tasha insisted, though her voice shook. "It's about me feeling free. You've always told me how confident I am, how I shouldn't hide who I am. This is who I am, Vance. I need a life that doesn't weigh me down." "Marriage weighs you down?" I asked with a bitter laugh. She put her hands on her hips. "Is it so wrong to want everything? To have a husband who's there for me while also keeping some excitement for myself?" "Plenty of people would say yes, it's wrong," I said flatly. "But I guess those same people would tell me I shouldn't marry you." Her gaze flashed with anger. "What are you saying?" I stood up abruptly. "I'm saying that if we're even discussing open relationships right now, we shouldn't be heading down the aisle." "You can't just call off the wedding," Tasha said, stepping into my path. "My parents have spent thousands. Yours have too." "My mother will eliminate me if I ruin this. So that's all it is? You care more about how your parents will react than about us?" She jabbed me in the chest. "That's not fair. I'm trying to be honest with you, to share what's in my mind. Isn't that what you've always wanted?" "I never realized your ugly truth would be that you can't handle monogamy," I said. "But you know what? Fine. Let's see if I can handle it." The next few days became a bizarre dance of avoidance. Tasha still planned wedding details while I pretended to nod along, a quiet storm raging inside me. But her behavior became increasingly suspicious. She'd come home late with flimsy excuses about extra work hours. I noticed her blouse was unbuttoned, her hair messy, and she wore expensive perfume she never used around the house. One evening, she stammered out excuses about overtime, but she had an odd flush and unfamiliar confidence that made me wonder if she was hiding more than fantasies. "How about we go out for dessert tonight?" I suggested casually. She seemed startled. "I'm exhausted. I need a shower and bed." After she disappeared into the bathroom, I went straight to her purse and found a fancy business card. "Martin Blackwood, Regional Director, Everest Technologies." On the back, in Tasha's handwriting, "Had a great time. My..." Heart hammered. So she's not just daydreaming, she's actually doing it. Over the next days, I paid closer attention. Tasha came home wearing expensive perfume, excused herself during phone calls, and mentioned Martin constantly. "He's so innovative," she'd say with a proud smirk. "He's teaching me so many new things about sales and marketing." I became obsessed with catching her red-handed. If she wanted an open relationship so badly, why hide it? My moment came when her phone rang while she was in the bedroom. The screen lit up with Martin calling. I answered without greeting. "Tasha," Martin said, voice low and amused. I'm still thinking about earlier. You know, the way you said you're done with that fiancé nonsense? God, it's exhilarating. I want to see you tomorrow. Let's do it at my place this time. Crimson rushed from my face. I couldn't speak, transfixed by the blatant admission. Martin paused. Tasha, you there? I ended the call just as Tasha walked in, looking alarmed. Vance, did you answer my phone? I sure did, I said, heat flushing my cheeks. Martin was calling. He's quite bold, isn't he? She blanched, mouth opening soundlessly. Finally, she sputtered. I can explain. Martin's my boss. He's been helping me. Helping you cheat on me, I said with a bitter laugh. So, that's the big push for this open relationship? You've already started it on your own. She tried placing a hand on my arm, but I yanked away. It's not exactly what you think. I thought it was supposed to be an option. Something we'd talk about. What garbage? I said. You're already messing around with him. That's not an open relationship, Tasha. That's good old-fashioned cheating. Her face twisted with anger. Don't judge me like you're some saint. I told you how I felt, but you brushed me off. You're the one who's always put your job at the sanitation plant above me. Well, Martin sees my potential. He's not content to let me waste away as some bored wife. So you wanted to explore your passions with him? Yes, she snapped. And now I realize I shouldn't have bothered telling you anything. We could have gotten married and I'd do my thing on the side. At least that way everyone would be happy. The coldness hit me like a physical blow. You know something? You and Martin deserve each other. I don't deserve to be judged by a man who can't see beyond his own ego. I wanted a bigger life, not a monotonous treadmill. I grabbed my jacket. We're done. I'm calling off the wedding. You can explain to your parents why the big day is off. As I stepped outside, my heart hammered with hurt and fury. But I knew I didn't just want to break things off. I wanted revenge. Tasha's arrogance burned in my mind all night. Images of her with Martin gnawed at me. His smug face, expensive suits, luxurious black SUV. I'd seen pictures of it, a pristine monster with tinted windows and custom leather seats. By dawn, I was searching property records for Martin's address. Martin lived in a gated development in the upscale part of town. My job with the sanitation company gave me access to septic pump trucks used to pump waste from restaurants and portable toilets. The stench was unforgettable, but after a while you learned to harness it. I spent days gathering intelligence. I discovered Martin was hosting an out-of-town business partner Friday night, meaning he'd be out for hours. I planned meticulously. I wanted something so disgusting and humiliating that they'd recoil at my name forever. Thursday night, Tasha found me packing boxes. My parents are furious you called off the wedding. They're saying you owe them for the money. I think you should help pay them back. You want me to pay for a wedding you destroyed? I gave her a cold stare. She rolled her eyes. Don't play the sufferer. You're the one who refused to adapt. You were always so timid, so content with your job pumping waste. Maybe that's all you ever wanted. But I want more, and Martin gets it. I took steps toward her, anger radiating. Enjoy your fancy boss. Just don't come crying when it blows up, she scoffed. It won't blow up. Martin is 10 times the man you are. Sure, I said softly. You both deserve each other. Friday night arrived. The sanitation truck I'd borrowed was loaded with the foulest cargo imaginable, sludgy human waste from a restaurant with repeated plumbing issues. The odor was so awful I had to keep windows open while driving, but I didn't mind. I drove across the city under darkness. By 10 p.m., I reached the gated community. The security guard gave the truck a cursory glance, assuming routine maintenance. I mumbled about an emergency leak and he waved me through. Martin's mansion stood at the end of a curved driveway with manicured hedges and ornate lamps. The modern facade had floor-to-ceiling windows revealing pristine marble and glass interiors. Parked in the driveway was his gorgeous black SUV, shiny, freshly waxed, absolutely perfect. I ground my teeth remembering Tasha gushing over its plush seats. We'll see how plush it is after tonight. I uncoiled the thick industrial hose, pulled a scarf over my mouth against the suffocating stench, and flipped the valve to reverse from suction to outflow mode. Here we go, I muttered, aiming at the SUV's rear panel. A vile, viscous mass of sewage erupted with a wet thwack, splattering across the shiny paint. Pungent waves of disgusting lumps formed grotesque shapes trickling down the sides. Within seconds, the SUV's polished perfection was obliterated under thick, reeking human waste. I moved methodically around the vehicle, feeling sick triumph with each cascade of sludge. I covered the wheels, windshield, roof, everything. Filthy torrents dripped onto cement, leaving swirling pools of rancid liquid. But I wasn't finished. Using a crowbar from the truck, I pried at a side window until I heard cracking wood and tinkling glass. I created an opening big enough to slip the hose inside, then opened the valve again. A macabre waterfall of sewage exploded into Martin's pristine living room, splashing walls, furniture, and marble tile. "That's what you get for thinking you can humiliate me," I whispered with savage glee. That's when headlights flickered across the driveway. A dark coupe pulled up, and Martin stepped out wearing an expensive suit. His eyes instantly widened at the sewage truck and foul liquid streaming into his house. He let out a strangled cry of disbelief. "What the hell? Stop! Are you insane?" I strode forward, crowbar in hand. When he recognized me, panic crossed his face. "You slept with my fiancée and you ask if I'm insane?" I laughed viciously. "Guess what? It wasn't an arrangement. She lied. You lied. Now you're both going to see what it means to drown in the filth you created." He lunged toward the truck to stop the flow, but I swung the crowbar to block him, metal clanging with sparks. "Get away or I'll smash your head in." Martin stepped back, face contorting with fear. "You're out of your mind. I'll call the cops." I pointed the crowbar at him. "Go for it. Then I'll tell them about how you seduced my fiancée. How you coerced her at work. Maybe your board of directors would love that scandal." His gaze flickered with uncertainty as we both glanced at the living room window, where shimmering sludge continued spewing, flooding marble floors. The stench and destruction were beyond belief. That's when another car screeched around the corner, Tasha's sedan. She slammed the brakes, leaped out wearing a tight skirt and heels.
"Oh my God, Vance, what did you do?" she gasped, nearly retching at the smell. I turned, adrenaline coursing. "You asked for excitement. Is this exciting enough for you, Tasha?" She stared in horror at the black SUV smothered in dripping sewage.
"You're insane. I never wanted it to go like this." "It doesn't matter what you wanted," I hissed. "You disrespected me, made me look like a fool sneaking around with him." Her face twisted with indignation. "You have no right to do this." "Martin's going to sue you for everything." "I wouldn't be so sure," Martin snapped, glaring at her. "You told me your fiancé was a weak nobody. Now he's threatening to expose me to the board. Do you realize what you've dragged me into?" She whirled on him, outraged. "You're blaming me? You were the one who insisted on hooking up in your office. You kept pushing me to break it off with Vance." I let out a derisive laugh. How sweet. Turning on each other already. What happened next was absolutely beautiful. They screamed at each other while standing in pools of sewage, Martin's $1 million house filling with waste behind them. The destruction was complete. His SUV buried under inches of chunky sewage, his living room flooded with filth that would smell for months. Both looked ready to vomit from the overwhelming stench. Martin tried rushing me one final time, but I aimed a fierce glare at Tasha. "Tell him to step back, or he'll get worse." She frantically grabbed his arm. "Don't. He's not bluffing." I climbed back in the truck and reversed out of the driveway. In my rearview mirror, I watched them standing in swirling muck, mouths covered, expressions contorted in absolute shock and revulsion. Martin's once gleaming SUV was drenched in sewage, and from the broken window a steady trickle continued flooding his sleek living room. I felt a thunderous pounding in my chest, triumph, disgust, burning adrenaline. The reek clung to me like a second skin, but I didn't care. I'd unleashed something vile and unstoppable in the name of revenge. Later, Tasha texted calling me a fool and threatening lawsuits over wedding costs. But I had recordings of their affair, evidence of Martin's misuse of power, enough blackmail material to keep them both quiet. Did I feel satisfaction? No, just an odd, hollow calm. But they'd learned what it meant to cross me. I'd been humiliated, and in one horrific night, I'd made sure they felt that same humiliation tenfold. No apologies, no second chances. They deserved each other and everything they got.